Today is August 21st, and we are pleased to have a total of about 8 of you on the call today. Today we're going to be talking to both Shannon Wu and to the team InstaDapp from ETH India, who actually were the winners of the MakerDAO bounty. So we're quite excited about that. In terms of recent partnerships, I'm sure many of you have heard about the partnership between MakerDAO and Wire. This is quite a landmark partnership as it allows us to move from DAI to fiat quite easily. And in terms of recent events, we were at DisCon, a conference in Boulder at the beginning of August, where I was pleased to have the opportunity to actually give a talk myself about Maker. Ethan as well gave us a demo into DAI.js. And then at ETH India, we had the actual alpha launch of DAI.js, which was presented by Sean Brennan. Like I mentioned earlier, we have our winners from the ETH India bounty, Maker's Bounty, and finalists in the overall hackathon here to give us a demo of the amazing project that impressed the hundreds of people at ETH India and one out of the number of truly impressive submissions. Also, just recently, we took part in the Unblock Hackathon, which we co-hosted with Wire, sort of in honor of our partnership that happened earlier last week. That was also an incredibly exciting event with some incredibly exciting hacks, which we hope to bring on in the coming weeks to give you a demo there. In terms of upcoming ETH events, ETH Berlin is coming up soon. If anyone is going to be there, please come by and compete in a bounty prize and make something cool. And yeah, Rich, would you like to go ahead and take it away?
Cool. Yeah, there's been some interesting things happening in the community this week, or this last week. The most important of which, I think, is the release of the new foundation proposal. Rune finished that up yesterday, and we posted it to our subreddit. It's worth a read. It's largely the same. Excuse me. It's largely the same as the last foundation proposal. The major changes, though, are around what was previously known as the 20% principle, and which is now being referred to as driving DAI adoption, which is a new focus that we've refined based on community inputs that is specifically targeted at getting DAI introduced into emerging markets, which I think is a pretty compelling argument to make. Want to say once again, thanks to our community for their impassioned response to the first foundation proposal. I think that was an enormously healthy reaction, and it shows exactly how committed and how passionate our members are, and not to minimize exactly how smart they are too, which is constantly surprising, a welcome surprise. There was a lot of deep insights to our first foundation proposal, and I think that we all benefited from those. So take a look at the new foundation proposal. We'll be having a vote to ratify that officially on September the 12th. In advance of that, we're going to be having a meeting next Wednesday, August the 29th, I believe, to discuss it specifically with Rune. So we'll have an agenda put up in the subreddit soon to let you guys know when the time and dates are specifically. About their general interest, member of the Request Network community recently hacked together a tip bot. When generally I despise tip bots, but this one is actually quite cool. It uses the request invoicing backend, which is a slick piece of software in itself. It also supports DAI natively, and we've been playing around with that in the subreddit. It's worth checking out. There's been some interesting mods recently that he just posted information about in our subreddit. One of those is the ability to have your tips get donated to charity immediately, which I think is a great option as well. So I think GiveETH is the first beneficiary right now. And other big news, Kyber has integrated, Kyber has technical difficulties. Kyber has integrated the Oasis DEX back end into their token swap application, which is great for everybody involved. We should see some significantly increased liquidity, some smaller spreads, hopefully. And just goes to show exactly how versatile the building blocks that DAI and the Oasis team are putting together, Maker and the Oasis team are putting together. We also had a very successful AMA on ETH Trader last week, which I was super happy about. I think it was, I'm obviously biased, but I think potentially one of the best AMAs I've seen in the crypto space so far. The amount of transparency, the amount of questions asked and answered was phenomenal. So I'm super encouraged by that. It's worth having a look if you're at all interested in MakerDAO, which I'm assuming you are because you're here, and the Wire partnership specifically. Mike Dunsworth is quite a character, and it's worth checking out his comments. We also had, it's sort of a downer, but also I think it's kind of encouraging. What I've been referring to with some people is Black Monday on August the 13th. Some really nasty things happened in the ETH space. Prices tanked, and a username EFF, I believe, if I'm saying that correctly, posted a tweet, which I think it was fascinating. I'm going to read it super fast, but if you want to check it out and follow the thread, I've added that to the agenda. But he points out that in the last 24 hours on the August 13th, 15% of all CDPs with 25 plus DAI were liquidated, which is obviously a disaster situation for the people involved, but for the ecosystem in general, DAI remains stable. So I think that this is yet another trial by fire that I think that we've successfully persevered through, and it's enormously encouraging, I think, to not only ourselves but to our partners. So it's, even though it's kind of a sad story, I like to point it out because it shows the strength of the system. I think that's it for me for general interest type activities last week. Jess, do you want to introduce one of our guests and we can have a chat?
Cool. Yeah, so I'd like to first go ahead and introduce Shannon, our very own. Shannon, do you want to say hi to everybody?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Awesome. Hey, Shannon. So Shannon has a really cool background and has been doing a lot of smart, incredible things for us here at Maker and her role and content. Shannon, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you've been up to and sort of what led you into your path here at MakerDAO?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to give some context. So I joined and really started working on Maker last year through the launch of DAI. And I think what really drew me to the organization was the amazing progress and thinking behind the team as far as like innovation in the space. And so I think this has just been a really, really incredible year as far as, you know, all the progress that's been made and the products that have been launched. And myself, I'm based in San Francisco. I've been out here for a while, and, you know, we get to see a lot of innovation out here, but I think Maker as an organization has just been doing a lot to move the space forward, which is very, very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and Shannon, do you want to tell us a little bit about other things that you've sort of done besides Maker? I know you've got quite an impressive resume going for yourself.
Sure. Yeah, I moved out to California, went to Stanford, and then after I graduated, I ended up going to work at a venture fund for a while, which is a very cool experience, getting to work with very early stage companies. It's kind of where I ended up falling in love with the process of company building, and especially organizations that have a very, very big vision and being at the very early days of it. And so very quickly, it became apparent that this was something that I really, really wanted to do and cared a lot about. So that was a few years ago. And then I ended up actually leaving to start an agency and founded that called Mr. Progress, which is a marketing firm that works with companies within growth stages. And the company ended up becoming very successful. And that was about 3 years ago. So we ended up working primarily with like Series B and C companies in the tech world. And then for myself, like, crypto and blockchain was definitely a personal interest for many years. And when at some point, you know, that became something that was just very, very fascinating to myself. And so at some point last year, I ended up advising and starting to work with projects that I really believed in, and more specifically, like teams of people that I really, really believed in. And I took a look at the space and said, like, you know, who and what is going to be really pushing the space forward. I mean, there's so much innovation and possibility, and I think that's really promising, especially since blockchain has the possibility of touching and optimizing and making systems around the world more efficient in whatever industry it is. That was, to me, was very, very cool. And so I'm on the founding team of Bloom as well, and I had also advised other projects like Sping Chain through their launch. And to me, it was always just very fascinating understanding, like, as products are going to market, how product adoption is actually going to happen. And so that's something I'm very, very passionate about. And so I had always been a big fan of Maker, and the team reached out when they had no marketers on the team when they were doing the launch of DAI, and asked for advice. So I ended up advising them through that particular process. But I will say that, like, I think over the next few years, it's gonna be really, really interesting to see which products actually end up, you know, going out to market and being able to make a really big difference. And I think DAI, and now with multi-collateral DAI coming up, you know, it's absolutely going to be one of those things that is going to be used as a benchmark as far as when we examine the space as a whole.
Definitely. Yeah, I was going to ask you what you're looking forward to most in the next year or so with Maker, but it sounds like you answered that with multi-collateral DAI.
Yeah, I mean, I think the integrations and how companies in all different kinds of industries are going to incorporate DAI is particularly fascinating. As, like, I sit in my position today, being at the hub of, you know, a lot of different various ecosystems of people who are, like, very interested in integrating with technology. I think it's very rewarding to be able to see larger organizations that traditionally are very slow moving have a deep, deep interest in how blockchain can make their processes more efficient and how they can benefit from that. And so when we're looking at DAI, like, what's really, really cool is that not only has it really, like, captured the attention of everybody who is in the blockchain space, but also, like, you know, in other industries, whether it's like shipping or whether it's logistics or finance, like, people are very fascinated by it, and I think with good reason. But to me, that's, like, a really, really good sign that, you know, there are people around the world who really understand what the possibilities are, and I'm really bullish that you know, that the entire space as a whole is gonna have, like, a really, really good future.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. And it's awesome to see sort of the beginning of some of that, especially with Trade Shift. And I can't wait to see more of it. Thank you for producing great content to enable that sort of onboarding and all.
Yeah, one of the interesting challenges, I think, is taking you know, product that's very, very sophisticated and complex, and being able to communicate that to many, many different stakeholders, everybody who is a technologist and is very passionate about it, people who are developers, maybe people who are executives, and be able to communicate that. And so one of the things and initiatives that I've led is the strategy as far as content and putting this out there of how we want to talk about the work that we've been doing. How do we want to talk about, you know, the products that we're releasing? How do we want to talk about the roadmap, and really be able to touch many, many different stakeholders from wherever they're at? And so that's been something that when I first started advising and working with the team on this was something that I was very, very passionate about, because I've seen it like work, you know, and I've built up really strong communities in the past, and people are very, very passionate. I think there's nothing more powerful than an organic user base that really, really cares deeply about the work that the company is doing. And so that's where I aim and endeavor, that I hope, like, all companies really end up moving towards, is being able to produce, like, really concise, clear content about the work that they're doing, and be able to provide a platform for any of their end users to be able to actually, like, onboard themselves and learn about it. And it's not a black hole. And I think that's one of the biggest criticisms of the space, is that it feels like it's a black hole, but there's not a lot of avenues for really good information, whether it's that it's not concise, or whether that it's not clear, or whether that like people aren't putting out information at all. And so I think this has been something that's been very exciting to see, is like as the blog has gone up and as other forms of communication have come out, you know, that there's more and more ways to really learn about different projects. And so that's been one of the things that I've been very, very closely involved with, and did all the writing for the earliest pieces of DAI, and really spent a lot of time thinking about what this means and what the impact of it is, and how it's going to affect people. So that's been one thing that I've been very, very focused on.
Definitely. Yeah, thank you so much, Shannon. Yeah, and I look forward to more of your content. It certainly helps me, and I think a number of people have a sort of coherent idea of all the exciting things that we're doing and what we're working towards when we have an amazing narrator like you to help us some of that guidance.
Thanks so much. I mean, I think this is just like a really exciting time, and like as I've spent quite a bit of time just looking at different projects that are out there and advising different teams. And I think one of the things that everybody's really excited to see is like the maturity coming towards the space, and being able to actually take products and integrate them in many different ways. And so I myself am very, very excited about it. And I know everybody in the Maker team is as well. So that's been one thing that's been very, very cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, looking forward. Does anyone have any questions for Shannon, or does anyone have any even like suggestions or recommendations that they'd like to see in terms of our content that we could take into account now?
I might have a general question. I'm always interested to know what when people are making what their favorite projects are, or what they're most interested in, or whether they have something cool coming up that they can talk about. Shannon, did I cut it?
Oh, what's the most interesting thing that's coming up?
Yeah, in your world, or interesting project that you did in the past, something that stands out to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think multi-collateral DAI, I mean, this has been like the end goal for so long. I think there's so much possibility. And what's also very, very interesting to me, as someone who's just like passionate about economics and passionate about how systems move, is seeing, like, especially with the recent ETH crash, like what that does to various systems. And I think it's very, very cool that you know, we're working on this very integral part of a much larger financial ecosystem. So I would say, yeah, multi-collateral DAI is something I'm very, very excited about. And then as far as like other products out there and interesting things, I think finance is definitely the most exciting place to be, because it's such a fundamental part of the infrastructure that's going to be needed for us to grow and for other things to come. And if we're looking at like the long-term vision of where everything is going, it's really going to start with having a really good foundation. And so personally, like when I've worked with projects, it's really something I've been really interested in, and like following different projects. It's been something that I've focused heavily on, is like which projects are going to, you know, really contribute to lending. And like, that's the first step to building a good ecosystem, or which projects are going to contribute to addressing like issues of scale, and really thinking about this in a very strategic way, and are thinking, you know, very deeply about it, especially in like the world that we're in today. It's like, you have to be very, very thoughtful about the work that's doing. And as you're building out smart contracts. So that to me is like one of the things I think that makes it very, very, like this whole space very different from like, say, like another area in tech, is because there's like all these nuances that have really big impact that kind of need to be thought through beforehand, which is cool. The pressure is definitely higher.
Yeah, it is fantastic. The intersection, I never thought that finance would be the most interesting part of my job, and it turns out that now it is. Yeah. Scott Heron raises an interesting question. I'm not sure whether you can answer this or not, but is there any plans towards integrating Bloom and some of the things that Maker is up to, or is that too far down the road? Or?
Definitely been in talks with Maker, which I think is great. And there's a lot of synergies as far as two very, very strong projects and very strong teams working towards, you know, building a better solution for lending. So I think there's definitely a lot of synergies. And if when something comes out, there's definitely a possibility. I think with Bloom, they're putting out this lender marketplace, so that would be a very natural integration. But I'll leave it to the official communications to put out what that might look like in detail. But I will say that I think these are both projects in which I've been really closely involved with, and I feel very, very strongly that everybody is working towards the same vision, which is very exciting, and it's very cool to hear so many smart people have come to similar conclusions about many things, which is good for everybody.
Cool. Yeah. Sorry, that's it for me, Jess.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you so much, Shannon.
Absolutely. Yeah, and anybody feel free to reach out to me at any point, either on Telegram or Rocket Chat and Maker, and I'm always happy to chat about this stuff. It's content and putting things out and thinking about simplifying explanations of really complex topics is always something that I'm very curious about. So feel free to reach out at any point.
Definitely. Thanks, Shannon. Yeah, and so now I'd like to go ahead and introduce the InstaDapp team, the winners of the ETH India hackathon, unless anyone has any more questions. But Sowmay, Samyak, and Satish, do you want to go ahead and say hi?
Hi, hello.
Hi.
Satish is currently not available. So Samyak and me are available here right now.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so Sowmay and Samyak are actually brothers, and they created by far one of the most impressive projects at ETH India, not just for us as Maker, but really for all of ETH India as a whole. Even one of the organizer of ETH Global, Kartik, tweeted himself that he was most impressed with what it is that you're all about to be privileged to see. So an honor both for Maker and for the Ethereum community that had the opportunity to be present at this event of about 400 to 500 hackers. So yes, Sowmay or Samyak, whichever one of you all would like to take it away, that'd be awesome. If you could show us your prize-winning hack.
So I had shared the screen. Everyone is able to see the screen?
Yeah.
All right. So recently we had participated in ETH India hackathon. Samyak, me, and Satish, we were the team there. So what we did, we built a resolver contract on top of MakerDAO and a simple dapp to issue loan using MakerDAO protocol. So currently we are using the MakerDAO dashboard. We have to make many transactions. So open the CDPs and give all the token allowance, then convert Ethereum into wrapped Ether, then convert the wrapped into pooled Ether, then lock the pooled Ether and draw the DAI. So it aggregates to 12 transactions. So for a non-technical users, taking loan by making 12 simultaneous transactions is not that user friendly. So we build a resolver smart contract which manages all the 12 transactions internally, and the end users only have to make only one transaction, which is of sending Ether to our contract. So I will demonstrate a simple example of making just single transaction, and DAI will get issued to my loan on my logged Ethereum. So this is our dapp. ETH India. Samyak will send a link in the comment who want to use it. It is available on Coven network. I am putting 0.2 Ethereum as a collateral, and I will get 33 DAI, 18 DAI out of this collateral. Confirm. Okay, so the transaction is getting confirmed. So let us understand how it is internally working in smart contract level. So this is the borrower who is making a transaction, sending an Ethereum to our Maker CDP DAI resolver contract. All right. So after sending the Ethereum, our contract opens a CDP. Token approval has already been provided, to the contract, all the 7 tokens that we can see in MakerDAO dashboard. And then Ethereum is converted into wrapped Ether. Wrapped Ether is converted to pooled Ether. Then Ethereum is logged and DAI is drawn just in single transactions. All the transactions are happening in just single transaction. Then after doing that, we issue the DAI to the borrower. So the borrower is only making single transaction, and he is getting the DAI in just single transaction, which conventionally take 12 transaction to do. Let's check the transaction status on Etherscan. So you can see that the borrower transferred 0.2 Ethereum to our smart contract, and that Ethereum is converted into wrapped Ether, then pooled Ether, then 18.4 DAI has been issued to my address. So internally, what we are doing, we are simplifying the MakerDAO protocol, which is not that user friendly. And even if user don't know what is wrapped Ether, what is pooled Ether, what is CDP, he just know that he's sending Ethereum worth one Ethereum, and he is getting 40 DAI as a loan. That 66% of whatever the collateral amount, collateral price of the Ethereum is. So it's just simplifying the MakerDAO protocol and making user friendly to all the audience, all the users who are interacting with the dapp.
So that was it. Is anyone having any questions or any feedback or anything?
Yeah, I have a question. How does it impact the transaction fees when you wrap all of those into the proxy contract? Is it cheaper or the same price or more expensive?
It's more cheaper, because every time a basic transaction starts with 21,000 gas units. So in this, only one time, once to that 21,000 gas units is used. So if you are using 12 times, that minimum transaction cost will be 21,000, which is the basic cost on Ethereum blockchain for any transaction. So it's more cheaper in terms of gas price.
How does this differ from EasyCDP.com?
EasyCDP is directly interacting with MakerDAO protocol. Or we can see all the functions of opening, closing, and so there are still technicalities on their dapp. And on our dapp, user even don't know about what is MakerDAO, how they're getting the loan, what is pooled Ether, what is wrapped, how can I get them.
The user only have to keep in mind that he has to give Ethereum, and he will get the percent what he has provided, like 33%, 40 or 66% of DAI. So he will get that directly. He doesn't have to know anything about MakerDAO, anything at all.
And everything is underlying, everything is working on MakerDAO protocol. So using that protocol, but making it simplified for users and also for other dapp builders. If anyone want to build their own loan taking issuance, or if any other contract want to integrate with this contract, so they just have to call one function instead of 7 functions simultaneously.
If somebody went to the CDP, our CDP dashboard after creating a CDP here, would they see it, or are they completely separate?
What can you repeat it?
If somebody opened a CDP through your InstaDapp and then they went to the DAI dashboard, would they see the CDP open in the DAI dashboard?
No, they will not. They can't see the CDP on DAI dashboard then, because the ownership will reside with our smart contract. All right, so they can see, but there will be a feature that if they want the ownership back, they will call a function on our smart contract, and the ownership will be transferred to the address.
Yeah.
So if you created a CDP on MakerDAO dashboard and you want our resolver smart contract to manage your CDP that clubbed all the transaction in one, you can give your ownership to this smart contract. Or if you want to take the ownership back, you can also call one function and get your ownership back.
This will be we will be adding this feature in near future.
One of the things that strikes me the most about this, I'm not a Solidity developer, so I don't understand all the complexities. Maybe Sean can jump in later to talk about why he thinks that's impressive. But one of the things I really love about this is I was shocked at how simple and easy to understand the UI was. And I'm curious how long and how much effort it took to come up with this interface, because it's one of the few interfaces I've seen, the third-party interfaces that immediately make sense to users, I think.
Yeah, so for this UI, we one night before we just took 2 hours and discuss about how we are going to make the interface in the hackathon, and then in the hackathon we build this interface in 18 hours, I guess. I am doing the work of UI and UX, and my brother Sowmay, he was developing the smart contract. So it took me 18 hours or something to make the interface with the integration of the smart contract. Yes,
It's very impressive. I really like it.
So we are also sharing the GitHub link of our project. It contains our backend server and also the smart contract in the comment section.
Jordan has an interesting question. He says, if this creates a giant CDP, couldn't it get bit even if it wasn't unsafe? So how does this create a situation where the CDPs are risky?
Yeah, so currently in our hackathon, we build a central CDP. We opened a CDP once, and all the users are depositing their Ethereum in that single CDP. But in future, we will create a separate CDP for each user. So just for sake of complexity, we build single CDP, but it is also possible to build separate CDP for separate users. So what was our main goal in the hackathon was to create a central CDP where we will keep all the assets of all the locked Ethereum and all the drawn DAI, borrowing money. So if a user took 20% loan on that locked Ethereum and other user came to us, so we can leverage that 20% user's loan to that other person. He can take 80% of the loan. So at an average, we are only having that 50% of the 50% leverage on our CDP, central CDP. But the user who is taking more loan, over 66% will reward the user who will take less loan on its locked Ethereum.
Yeah, the user who has taken 80% would have to pay more interest than and the user who have taken 20% would have to pay less interest than 0.5%.
So
that was a business model.
So by creating a global CDP, we can leverage someone's borrowing to the others' borrowing, someone's locked Ethereum to the others' extra borrowing.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. I've heard people discuss similar business models, but people are also sharing the global risk at that point. So you'd have to ensure that there is.
Yeah, it need a perfect risk management.
What?
You'd have to ensure that it was enormously collateralized, so a dip in ETH price doesn't place everyone at risk. Right?
Yeah, so underlying what it is just an extra feature of global CDP stats, but the underlying concept is that we can even create separate CDPs for each users also if they want to choose.
The global CDP model also opens the door to allowing a value-added service where you can top up risky CDPs for people as a service, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that something that you guys have considered?
Yeah, no. We had built this model in hackathon, but we will also give an option to users to create their separate CDP via our smart contract.
And yeah, the question you are asking is the risk we have to the risk which will increase for all the users. I mean, for one CDP, all the users are dependent on one CDP, so user risk will become more. That's what you're asking, right?
Well, actually, I should explain myself. So there's been an ongoing conversation about providing a service that's sort of like insurance or a way to rescue risky CDPs. So if I opened a CDP and I didn't collateralize it enough, Ether drops. But I also want to have sort of a safety mechanism in place. I could pay an extra fee, or I could allow a third-party CDP owner to sort of top up my CDP and then sell it back to me once I got the sufficient collateral back. And it becomes a complicated process because we need to trade ownership of CDPs, because you can't a third party could top up your CDP, but there's no guarantee that that loan will ever be paid off because there's no collateral there, right? But in your model, if there's a global CDP owner, as InstaDapp could provide a third party service to top up risky CDPs and then allow those users to pay back that top up at some point in the future to get ownership of their CDP back. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So instead of trading individual CDPs, create a global CDPs. So just for example, if we are having a 80% upper cap on the liquidation of our that personal CDPs. So if a user exceed 80%, his individual CDPs on our InstaDapp will be liquidated, but not our global CDP will get liquidated because it is distributed. The risk is distributed to many CDP holders. So that can be achieved via global CDP, but with individual CDP, it will be quite complicated.
It's a lot to think about. It's a very interesting model to take. Sean, did you have any comments or any observations you want to make about the app? I think you were on the ground while it was being built.
Hey guys, awesome job on the hack. I was one of the judges at ETH India, and so I have a bit of context on this. And we were talking in the chat some. Basically, I think you guys explained, but basically by pooling all the Ether into one CDP, there'd basically be a variable rate of the maker like yearly fee, the stability fee. So if you basically lock a lot of collateral and draw no DAI, you could have a very low interest rate, even potentially negative. So you could basically get paid for giving stability to other CDPs. Does that sound so? I mean, that's could be a future addition to the app, but it seems like one of the cool use cases of a pooled CDP.
Yeah, it's interesting too. So if somebody would sort of hyper collateralize their CDP through this application, they're lending or stability to the system and potentially seeing a reward for being a maintainer or sort of a good system.
Yeah, and then other people could get much more than 3x leverage on their Ether, and they would pay a fee for that, right? So like some people would be like extra risk seekers, and other people would be extra safe in a sense. So
yeah, it's a fascinating idea. So I guess the hurdle there is there's a certain counterparty trust aspect to that mechanism, though. You'd have to hope that InstaDapp is always maintaining a healthy ratio, and that you can trust the incentives of your other CDP fellows, I guess.
Another note, the swap tokens panel in the middle is actually really cool. I don't know if you've clicked the change token yet, but the UI is really slick, and it uses the Kyber network on the back end to do atomic swaps between tokens. And I want to highlight that as an awesome thing too.
We have also implemented this feature of Kyber network. We have integrated Kyber network, so user can directly convert their DAI to any other token if he wants to invest, or he can directly buy Ethereum and invest Ethereum again to take loans.
So what most of the users do right now, they invest Ethereum, take the collateral DAI, and again invest that collateral DAI into Ethereum. So they are basically merging using MakerDAO loans. So this process can also be automated using Kyber network swap. Currently, Kyber network is in Ropsten and MakerDAO is Cohen. So we had not integrated directly on smart contract. So user can also use Kyber network to swap tokens just by choosing anything in just one transactions. So it also a value addition to convert DAI into other token and another token to DAI. Any token.
Oh wow, that's pretty cool. Did we address all the questions? I see there's a lot of activity going on in the chat. Is there anything in there that we didn't ask?
Is it possible for the Kyber swap to be part of the single transaction, guys, or is that still a separate transaction?
What? Can you repeat the question?
You create a loan, or you create a DAI, or draw DAI, and then instead like draw reputation or something instead.
Is it still part of the same single transaction though? That
No, that's what I said. That Kyber network is on Ropsten,
Okay, cool.
and
That's what I thought.
MakerDAO is on Coven. So it is not quite possible right now, but it is
But it
also,
could.
yeah, it can be. Recently, Kyber network had also built their system on Coven network. So it's on our list to integrate all the things on Coven.
Yeah, for now, yeah. But both the two protocols are working properly. You can use Kyber network on Ropsten and check it.
Yeah, so it can also be a part of single transaction. So if user want to make a cycle of 3 transactions where the DAI will be drawn from the Ethereum, and then that drawn DAI will be invested into Ethereum directly. So it can also be possible.
What are your next steps for the application? What are you guys planning to do now? Are you going to release this?
Currently, we are stuck with this repay loan. So the problem with we are able to convert DAI that at the time of taking loan, they are locking Ethereum and getting DAI back. But at the time of repay, they will give the DAI and get the loan, get the Ethereum back. So while converting wrapped Ethereum to Ethereum in single transaction, we are facing problem. Maybe the problem will be with the wrapped Ether contract on Coven or whatever it is. We are just figuring out the problem, whether the same problem is available is on Ropsten or on main network.
Are you guys planning to release this app officially? Is this going to be a part of a new business, or is this just a test case for you guys?
No, we are planning to release this app a little bit later, because we have made our smart contract in a hurry, so we have to check for the bugs and many things related.
Actually, currently we are just a team of 3 people. I am managing the smart contract. He's managing the dApps, and our third person is managing the product UI and everything. So we need more team members who can audit the smart contract before releasing on main network, because even a single bug in smart contract can leads to many risk. So it will take time to launch in main network, but on Coven network, in couple of months, we will launch a dApp.
Well, that's very exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys do with this. There's a lot of potential here.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I was actually thinking, Rich, was maybe we could help Samyak and Sowmay join us at ETH SF, so in San Francisco in October, in a couple months, in which maybe they'd find some other sort of interested hackers or team members to help them continue to build this out and be sort of the next iteration of InstaDapp.
Yeah, I like that idea. There's a lot of possibilities. It's something that Jess and I have been talking about for a while, is that we have these hackathons and people build something, and then that's sort of the end of the story. We don't want that story to end. So the idea is that at the concurrent hackathons, people will be able to pick up projects from previous hackathons and sort of push that ball forward a bit. So that'd be an interesting idea. We should talk about that.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. We will think on that, about coming to ETH San Francisco.
Okay. All right, Jess, we're sort of running out of time here, and I think that Lenka, you had some information to keep us updated on. Are you around? Maybe.
Hello.
I think I saw her leave.
Yeah, she came back a bit. I think might be having some connection problems. All right. I think that.
Hey guys, sorry I'm here. I'm not having picture on because I'm outside and it's a bad connection. But I just want to say hello from Bratislava. I'm in my home country, and I'm here for the whole week, and I'm meeting with very interesting people that are active in the crypto scene, and I'm getting to know a lot of interesting startups and community initiatives that are happening, and it's really, really impressive, and I wanted to share it with you that, yeah, I would like to make a little report from my stay here, but super welcoming community, and yeah. So it's really good to feel and vibe here, and I hope we get to organize something very soon nearby. in the next coming months. So this is just a little status update that yeah, they're super friendly people in Slovakia's capital, also in the east part of the republic. Vienna is also very close. That's the capital of Austria. That's 1 hour away. And then there's really nice communities in the two largest Czech towns in Prague and then Brno. So I'm just connecting and networking. And if you know someone that you think it's worth to reach out to and visit, I'll be happy to hear. Yes, on I think I am as Lenka or Lenkla, Lenka. LA on both Rocket Chat and email. So please do not hesitate to reach out. I'm officially as a community lead for Europe, so I'll be happy to hear about initiatives and get to know more people and hopefully come out with some interesting partnerships or events out of this. So that's just a little hello postcard from Bratislava.
Cool. Thanks for the update. We'll probably have you back again next week to tell us about the results of your event.
Yes. Yes.
All right, sounds good. Jess, did we have anything else on the agenda that you wanted to get to today?
Yeah, great to hear, Lenka. Thank you so much for the super hello postcard there. I like that. And yeah, thank you so much, Shannon, for sharing with us everything that's going on in your world. And Sowmay and Samyak, it's incredible. And I can't wait to keep working with you guys and figuring out how we can do even more with InstaDapp.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thanks for everybody for showing up. That was great.
Yeah.
We'll be posting this on YouTube soon and pushing a video to our subreddit. So watch out for us there.
Yeah. And we'll be posting a blog about the incredible sort of hack that we all just saw demo. So look out for that as well.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.